What's up guys, it's ALLDAYANTHONY and welcome back to the RSX vlog that you hopefully know and hopefully continue to love, because in today's video, I'm giving you a 1 year review. Let's go. Alright guys, and welcome back to another Acura RSX Type S vlog where time flies when you're having fun. I can't believe that it's been over a year since I picked up this car, and I thought right now would be the perfect opportunity to give you guys a 1 year review of the car and talk about what it's been like owning it for the last year, all of the mods, the maintenance, and just my own thoughts on the exterior, the interior, and kind of everything in between. So if you've been following my channel for a while now, then you may know that this car, not this exact car, but the RSX Type S in general, was one of my high school dream cars. And all of these years later, I finally own one. I've had to put a lot of my own special touches on it. I've cleaned it up, I've done a little bit of detailing and everything in between to make this right here a very good clean example of an RSX Type S today. So with that said, we have a few things to talk about. Let's jump into the exterior first. Alright, so jumping into this, the Acura RSX, in my opinion, is a very good looking car. It's simple, yet it's sporty, but has this timeless look that is held up all these years later. I mean, for what it's worth, I think that this car is still better looking than 90% of the new cars being released today, so I think that says a lot. I think Honda and Acura really hit it out of the park as far as the exterior design with the car. Now, obviously, I've done some things to kind of spice this up, but the RSX starting point is a good starting point. Whether you have the base model or the Type S, I think you have good bones no matter what. Now, the RSX has had a couple different looks over the years from 02 to 06. Starting in 02 to 04, it was a different headlight design from what I have, along with the front bumper, the rear tails, and the rear bumper, as well as the side skirts. It's the one that has more of those kind of cup shapes there underneath the headlights. Some people are a big fan of the way that looks. Personally, I like the facelifted model a little bit more. I mean, actually, quite a bit more. So if I would have actually started with an 02 to 04, I would have highly considered swapping to this front end, or I would have done my own special touches to make the most of the 02 to 04 front end and rear end. But for what it's worth, if you have the 02 to 04, you can swap to the 05 to 06. If you have the 05 to 06, you can swap to the 02 to 04. Really, whatever you want to do. I just personally prefer this front end and then this rear end. Now, as far as what I've done to the car, I've focused a lot on OEM Plus mods and restoring the car to its former, newer glory. So, for example, I had the hood repainted, I had the front bumper repainted, and I had the roof repainted, as those had some clear coat failure. But in retrospect, I kind of wish I would have done the fenders as well, as those are still kind of sandblasted and have some chips. So if I could go back in time, I would have done that different. Now, I would say one of the things that made the biggest difference, and I mean seriously, the biggest difference, was putting on brand new OEM headlights. I had to pay a pretty penny for these things, but again, this car is going on 19 years old. The 2006 being the youngest at almost 18 years old. The headlights aren't getting any newer, and you can only restore them so many times, and there's other things like micro cracking and the polycarbonate and all that stuff that may never be able to get restored. So really opting to get new headlights made the biggest difference. The paintwork in this and the headlights, hands down, probably my two favorite things that I did, because even if I did nothing else to the car and just maybe simply polished it or detailed it, this would still be a very good looking car. But this was just an extra compliment to everything else I've done, like the wheels, like the spoiler, and all of that, which I'll get to here in just a minute. For the people out there that like pretty paintwork, this color right here is Nighthawk Black Pearl. In the sunlight here, you can actually see a lot of that blue flake in the car, which I think looks really, really good. My car is actually currently covered in a bunch of leaves from some shenanigans, but that's besides the point. All right, so let's talk about the spoiler situation, because I got a spoiler on top of my spoiler on top of my spoiler. Needless to say, I'm a fan of spoilers. When I first got this car, it had the Type S deck lid on here, which I think looks pretty good. For people that don't want a flashy spoiler on the back, the Type S deck lid looks great. But for me personally, I want to throw a spoiler on pretty much everything I own, and I absolutely love the OEM A-Spec / Type R spoiler that these cars have, and I knew I had to have it. And then I ended up getting this Icon mini deck lid here that was already painted from Icon, threw that on, paired this together, and then obviously threw on the passenger JDM gurney flap, as that's kind of my thing, and I love the way that looks. Now, also, I have videos on all of this, so if this is your first time seeing one of my videos, just know I have pretty much a video on every single thing I've done in this car, so you can always go back and rewatch those as well. So in conclusion, on the exterior, I think that this is a very good looking car in general. Again, they hit it out of the park with the design from the factory. I think it's very timeless looking. There's some people who aren't a fan of the way they look, maybe because they're too simple or whatever it may be, but I like it because it's something that you can build on, or you can just kind of accentuate with some OEM plus style mods to make it look a little bit more aggressive and a little bit meaner. It's the same concept with the 90s Hondas. But I will say that outside of the OEM stuff, there's plenty of aftermarket stuff. If you don't mind the eBay parts, if you don't mind the Duraflex parts, if you don't mind things that are fiberglass, then you can do a ton to these cars to really make them look however you'd want them to look. I just personally am a fan of that OEM goodness that fits properly. So yeah, that's just me. Let's jump into the interior. This is hands down one of my favorite parts about the Acura RSX. This is a driver-focused interior that is simplistic, but that's all it needs to be, right? On these cars, you're looking for the driving experience. You're looking for the sound of the motor, the pull of VTEC, the sleek, kind of elegant, simple look on the outside, and again, a sporty yet simple interior that has a few amenities to make it nice. I love the seats on the RSX. Whether you have the base model, whether you have the Type S, I think that the seats are awesome. The 02 to 04 base models will have kind of that 90s pattern there on the cloth seats. Then the 02 to 04 Type S will have the leather seats, but they have a single stitch instead of a double stitch here, which is why there's so much separation and issues with the leather on those seats. But then 05 to 06 got the double stitch on the leather to make it hold up a little bit more. Obviously, I've reupholstered this, have a whole video on that. But the cloth seats on the 05 to 06 are hands down the most desirable, especially in the black. Fun fact, I actually found a set of rear cloth 05 to 06 black seats at the junkyard. I got them for 30 bucks or so. They are close to mint, but I have yet to find a front set of seats, which would be nice, and then I could really kind of complete that and do that, because I really do prefer the cloth. But the leather here is still in very good shape on these, especially with having these redone. So, but I think in general, the black look, this ebony interior here is leaps and bounds better than the titanium interior. No offense to anybody that has the titanium interior, it's just, I don't know why they even chose to go with that color. I mean, they kind of like, what was the point? They could have put black interiors on everything and it would have looked amazing. Hence, again, why I was okay with having the Nighthawk black pearl color on the outside, because I did get the black interior on the inside. Outside of that though, I love the interior. Look at this. When I'm sitting right here, this is all focused towards me. I love the controls. And then over here, what do I have? I have heated mirrors. Amazing. I've never had heated mirrors on any other car. I think that's cool. Sunroof, easy to use. Cruise control, easy to use. Got your cruise buttons down here. And the steering wheel, this right here it needs to be replaced. Honestly, I actually wasn't going to tell you guys this. I do have a replacement. I do have what could be the most minty, fresh JDM Momo Type R steering wheel I've ever seen sitting in a box, but I want to get the alignment redone on the car before installing that, and we'll do that in a future video, but there's a quick little tease. But as far as highlighting some of my favorite things I've done to the interior, the few things I have done, I'm a huge fan of this Pioneer 1500 NEX. It's an Apple CarPlay unit. It's awesome. It sounds really, really good. It completely changed the sound system with the rear sub here on the car, and yeah, it just kind of modernized the car quite a bit. I have the K-Tune shift knob. I have the Hybrid Racing shift boot collar, whatever you want to call that, which is magnetic, and then of course the the brand new OEM RSX Type S floor mats that I spent an arm and a leg on. And I only have one exposed because I have the rubber mat here on this side that's OEM as well. Simple interior, but I'm a simple guy, so this is something that I really enjoy, and I always look forward to sitting in this car. Now, hands down, one of my favorite things about the RSX that not a lot of people talk about, I mean, some people talk about it, but not everybody does, is how much freaking space these cars have in the hatch. It's incredible, amazing. Like, they need to be talked about more. You could fit a whole Grom back here. You could fit 3 bikes back here. You could fit probably 5 bodies back here and still have enough room for groceries. It's incredible. These seats right here, these just fold down. So I click that, push that forward, bam, space. What do I got over here? Bam! You could sleep in there. So in conclusion here, the interior is a very nice place to be as a driver. I think it's probably an okay place to be as a passenger. Sitting in the back here, if I can lift this bad boy up, there we go. You have room, like there is some room back there if you want to get you and the boys, right? Go for a quick night drive. It would probably be okay, but it wouldn't be my preferred place to sit, and me as a bigger guy. So yeah, it's a nice place to put things like this. I go, that's nice. Other than that though, probably the biggest thing to do with an RSX interior is throw in a double-din Apple CarPlay unit. Maybe try to get your seats reupholstered, right? Because chances are if you have RSX seats, then they're probably getting pretty ripped up. So maybe get those redone. Keep it simple, keep it clean. That would be the biggest factor. I promise you, if you have a clean interior and you show up anywhere with that car, somebody's gonna look inside and go, damn, dude, this is sick inside here. It's not that it's that cool, it's that it's that clean. So just something to think about. All right, let's cover the heart of the beast. So jumping into some hot K-Series talk, the RSX does in fact come with a K-Series, both the base model as well as the Type S model, but the base model is about a 40 horsepower decrease and a different variation of VTEC than that of the Type S model. So from 02 to 04 you have the K20A2, and then from 05 to 06 you have the K20Z1. This is the K20Z1, and in theory, or on paper, or according to the forums, the K20Z1 is going to be the closest K-Series variation to the JDM Type R K20A. But the other difference here for the motor is going to be the transmission. So the base model is going to have a 5-speed transmission or an auto transmission. The Type S model is only going to come with the 6-speed. A lot of people complain about the 6-speed. They say that it's weak or it grinds, there's pop-outs, there's all sorts of stuff. This has 190 something thousand miles on it, and that transmission shifts smooth as butter. There's no pop-outs, there's no grinds, there's no nothing. I've banged gears with it all day long and I've never had one issue, but I really suppose it's how you drive. And there's also a lot of bad drivers out there, so before anybody ever scares you about a transmission on anything, just look at who's driving it. Look who's telling you that the transmissions are weak, and then make your decision on whether or not they're right or wrong. So no offense, it's just, yeah, there's a lot of people that talk crap and they're horrible drivers. So a year ago when I picked up this car, this was my first venture into the Honda K-Series. I had never owned a K-Series car, but I've been in plenty of K-Series cars, and even cars that had K-Series in them, like an Ariel Atom, but I had never truly owned a K-Series. So my goal was to learn a little bit more about them, see what all the hype was about and all of that. And I can confirm a year later that K really is the way. As far as price per horsepower, the K-Series does in fact make the most sense, especially with the prices of the B-Series that have literally gone through the roof for really no other reason than maybe nostalgia. I mean, that's probably the best way to put it. But the K-Series is going to produce the most horsepower. It is going to have the arguably most aggressive and noticeable crossover. The K-Series, especially the K20Z1, K20A2, the K20s in Civic SIs of kind of this generation, 2000, 2006 and up, it pulls you, dude. When you get into VTEC, there is a very, very noticeable pull. It's like somebody's getting behind you and just pushing you along, and it feels incredible. What I've learned is that, you know, going online, going shopping for aftermarket parts, whatever it may be, the parts are endless. Also, the motors are endless because they've been in so many different things. So whether you stick with the K20 series model or go with like the K24, which is going to give you more torque, you can't go wrong with either one. But I will say that owning the car for a year, things I've learned is that this is a very tame car driving around town, you know, just going cruising, grabbing groceries or doing whatever you want to do. But once you start getting into VTEC, that's when the car really comes alive. So whether you're taking up into the mountains or hitting some back roads and really rowing through gears, it's going to put a smile on your face almost every single time, guaranteed. I mean, I haven't seen anybody get into VTEC in this car with me and not look over and see them smiling, because it truly is a ton of fun in the K series. So as far as maintenance and mods, I'm not exactly where I want to be at this point in time, but this last year was definitely more focused around maintenance. So for example, I made the video on the valve adjustment with Larry Miller Honda. Amazing video. If you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend watching it, especially if you have a higher mileage K series. But that made a huge difference just in the overall drivability of the car. Other things I did were motor mounts. The motor mounts on this car when I got them were shot. Motor mounts, you can go cheap and you can go with, you know, $50, $60 motor mounts, but they're going to break in a week. So you definitely want to go OEM, or you want to go with something that's going to be a little bit more solid if you don't mind getting rattled to death. But I chose to go OEM here, and OEM passenger side here on this mount, OEM front mount. My transmission mount's still good, my rear mount's still okay for right now. But yeah, that was like, I don't know, what, $500 in motor mounts, which was pretty expensive, but I did those myself, turned out great. Cody did the valve adjustment here. I did the transmission fluid. I've done, I think, 2 or 3 oil changes at this point. A clutch master cylinder and slave cylinder, I brand new in the box at home. I need to knock those out. I just haven't had time to do it. And I don't even know if I want to do it, because I kind of suck with bleeding fluids personally. It's just not something I'm great at. So I may have Cody help me with that. We may try to shoot a video on it. And then of course the shifter cables I need to do. And then I do have the hybrid racing intake that I want to install as well. It's just I need to switch to the RBC intake manifold before I can do that, and that way it'll actually fit properly. But JDM Type R valve cover here, that was brand new, bought that. Got the hybrid racing goodies here on the top, and outside of that though, I think that's really maintenance wise mostly what I've done. But as far as things that have been a problem, clutch master cylinder, that's been a problem. Don't like the way that that's feeling right now. I'm kind of worried that it's going to fail on me because it's already kind of seeping, so I want to get that done ASAP. Over here, power steering pump. So this has a pretty gnarly leak. I believe it's coming from this gasket right here, which I've replaced twice now, and I think I'm either over tightening it or under tightening it every single time, even though I'm following the torque spec. But I do believe it's all leaking from there, unless there's a micro crack somewhere else. So I've been trying to chase down this leak. Not a massive deal, but I am hearing some kind of suctioning sounds that I don't like from that. The other thing, I'm getting some alternator whine when I have my stereo on. I don't know what that is about either, but I turn the stereo off, it goes away, turn it back on, it comes back on. It's a bad ground somewhere, so I may have to pop out the stereo, go back through and find that. But outside of that though, I did put on a new air intake filter. I'm running the engine cold air intake that came with the car. Haven't had any issues with that. And that's pretty much it, right? I mean, as far as the engine goes, it's extremely reliable. Honestly, I could have done nothing to this motor and just continued to drive it the way I bought it, and it would still be a 300,000 mile motor. Ideally, I'd like to make this from a 190,000 mile motor to get this up to where, you know, it'll make 400,000 easy and keep going for another lifetime. But yeah, that's kind of my goal, right? Something that it's still clean, tasteful, but eventually I will continue to add some more mods on here to try to focus on power, and then hopefully be able to, you know, source a Honda unit just to be able to extract a little bit more if I can also find a tuner as well. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff. Now, as a conclusion here on the motor, as far as fun factor, mods, reliability, power, and all of that go, I think that this car has the perfect amount of power to daily drive and always be able to put a smile on your face. 200 something horsepower to the K20Z1, a very high redlining VTEC, also a blast. You know, revving it to 8100 never gets old. Personally, I don't think I would go boost on this car, as I would like to keep it NA and have the most fun that way. But boost on these cars turns them into literal animals. It's just insane. Maintenance wise, these cars are, I would say, relatively easy to maintain. I've done most of everything myself other than the timing adjustment. And then cost wise, to maintain these cars, if you choose to go OEM with everything, plan on spending more, especially with something like motor mounts. It's going to cost a decent chunk. But if you choose to go aftermarket or modify with other brands and whatnot, then I think that you probably could save some money and still have a pretty fun car. All right, so my battery's dying, so we are going to briefly highlight the suspension, the wheel tire setup, as well as the brakes. So for the suspension, when I first got this car and I told everybody I wanted to lower it, everybody said, Anthony, don't do it. It's gonna be headache after headache. It's gonna be a nightmare. And I was like, screw you guys. I didn't actually do that, but I was thinking kind of that in my head a little bit because I was gonna lower it anyways, right? I was gonna go with True Heart coilovers because I put those on all of my other Hondas and that was the plan. And you know what? I did it. I lowered the car, made a whole video on it, and the car looked significantly cooler. Now, the biggest thing is that once I lowered the car, I was chasing spring binding issues and things like that that I couldn't quite put my head around. And I was like, oh my God, were they right? Did I screw up my car by lowering it? Well, I reached out to True Heart and I asked them about some spring binding issues, and they did assure me that that can happen with coilovers, obviously, with a McPherson strut suspension, but they did let me know that the True Hearts that are on all the RSXs or out there for all the RSXs are currently like a V1 design with the upper perch mount, meaning that some people have experienced spring binding issues, other people haven't, but they are working on completely redesigning the upper perch mount for that spring to eliminate that. They sent me out some D2 top collars for the springs for those upper perches just to kind of try out as like a prototype design, and you know what? It eliminated all spring binding issues. If I was having like a bind a day or 2 binds a day, I am not having any binds at all whatsoever. So that made a huge difference. They are eventually going to be coming out with a new upper perch design that I believe you can just buy separately that would eliminate any spring binding issues if you do have it. So the car is comfortable, it rides great. I've had no issues with rubbing, binding, squeaking, bumps, clunks, or anything like that. So needless to say, I think I made the right choice there as far as a nice kind of more budget focused setup that can still be daily driven, but can still also be driven up in the mountains. So I'm really happy about that. So now moving on to the other topic of brakes. So I did upgrade to slotted rotors and StopTech brake pads. I have a whole video on that. Technically, the fronts are StopTech, the rears are something from O'Reilly. There's a whole situation. You got to watch the video. But the brakes feel awesome. I did paint the calipers with the G2 paint. That still looks like the day that I did them. So those have been holding up wonderfully. So I do recommend the G2 paint if you decide to go through all the prep work. Again, just watch the video. But this braking setup, mint, love it. It's been awesome. Now the wheels and tires, the Koenig Neoforms, and then the Nitto NT555 G2s. I do like the 5-spoke. I think that these work well. They're very light, they're very functional, they're freaking easy to clean, and I love that. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of want bronze. I'm not gonna lie. I see this car every single day in the garage and I always go, what would that look like with bronze wheels? Yeah, I don't know. Bronze wheels eventually, but I do love the fitment on here. 17 by 8. Yeah, 17 by 8. No rubbing issues in the rear. Tires are 225 45 17s. No issues there. The tires are fantastic. They grip so well up in the corners, on straights, just banging through gears. I absolutely love them, and I also think they look really nice too. All right, sorry about that. Had to swap cameras because the other one died, even though I told myself, Anthony, don't make this a long-winded video. Make it nice, short, and sweet. That didn't happen. So anyways, I got you guys on the GoPro. Apologize about the wind noise again, but all we have left to talk about is the Yonaka exhaust, which has been fantastic. I absolutely love the tone of it, love the fitment, love the look. No issues whatsoever. People have asked me, has it started rattling? Has it started making metallic noises or anything like that? No, everything has still been awesome on the exhaust. Dude, Yonaka is the way for probably 95% of Hondas. If you have a Honda, I would really recommend going with Yonaka as they produce a very, very nice sound. Then here we go. Hands and knees. The MPC subframe bracing and rear control arms. One of my other favorite mods that I have done. It looks incredibly cool from the rear of this car, and the other big thing is that it structurally, the car feels more supported in the rear. It feels stronger, it feels stiffer. It's the same kind of setup I have on the Civic. I knew I had to throw it on the RSX. It's been on here for probably what, a month and a half, 2 months now, and I haven't had any issues, and I love the way the rear of the car feels, especially since I have a sway bar in this one. So anyway, I think I've covered pretty much everything. Maybe I've missed a couple things, but we're gonna go for a quick little drive, give you guys my final thoughts on the RSX Type S, and then it's dinner time. Love this car. All right, so now that we're on the road, I thought I'd give you guys my final thoughts here on the RSX and kind of sum things up here. So in a nutshell, the Acura RSX, high school dream car of mine, a car that I actually wanted to take to prom, and it didn't work out. And it wasn't until all these years later that I've finally been able to buy one. So what are my overall thoughts? I love this car. That's probably the simplest way to put it, but I can see why there's so many people that buy these cars. Dude. And absolutely fall in love with them because they are so much fun to drive. They are still extremely affordable for what you're getting, and they're good looking. On a day-to-day basis, I would be lucky to see maybe one RSX, maybe every couple days I might see one RSX, but it's not something I see every day, and let alone see a clean example of one. Many of them have gone through the ringer. They've gotten beat to hell and back. They've had plenty of abusive owners and just people in general that bought the cars back in the day just to be an economy car. So there's still some hidden gems out there, some commuters like this car was right here, but it's very rare that I will see another clean Acura RSX, at least where I live here in Idaho. So I always get really pumped when I see another one, whether it's a base model or a Type S, especially one that's in good shape. But I will say that if people are after these cars just because it's a K-Series, go buy a Civic Si. You're gonna still have the same amount of fun, the same amount of power. I mean, technically you might have more room if you get the 4-door, maybe it might be more usable for you. But if you truly love the way the RSX looks, and this is a car that you've always liked, then I highly recommend them, dude. They're an absolute blast. I think the biggest downside to buying one is honestly just finding the right one, because that could take a lot of time. There's a lot of people I know that are really patient that have been wanting to buy an Acura RSX, and they've said, Anthony, I've waited years at this point, but I still haven't come across a clean one. You know, what do I do? Do I buy this one over here that's kind of clapped out? Do I buy this one without a motor? Like, what do I do? And patience, man. I think that's the biggest thing. I do agree that these are getting harder to find in clean shape, and that is, in my opinion, that is a negative, because I think more people should have been able to experience these cars or whatnot, or more people would have taken care of them so other people could own them rather than just getting the hell beat out of them. Now, I would say that my overall favorite part about the RSX would be the looks of this car. Again, if you don't love the looks, just go buy a Civic Si if that's all you care about. So people that like the looks can enjoy this car, because that's something that I have always personally enjoyed. I like the way that these cars look, especially with the spoiler. I would say my next favorite thing about the car, probably the motor. Third favorite thing would be the interior. Fifth favorite thing would be heated mirrors. It's very nice, trust me. Now, as far as how long I want to own this car, that's the other big question that I ask myself all the time. So when I bought this car a year ago, I kind of had this thing in my head where I said, you know what, I'll buy this car, I'll own it for a year, I'll do all the modifications that I want to do to it, and I'll revisit the drawing board, right? Is this something that I want to stick with? Is this something that I want to keep? Or do I want to sell it and then move on to the next vehicle? But I will say that this car is something that I have a very hard time thinking about getting rid of. I actually don't even like thinking about it, to be honest. I love driving this car so much. I love looking at this car. I love taking photos of this car. I love washing this car. I love working on this car, that I don't want to get rid of it. But I do know that there may be a time where I have to make a decision on if I'm getting a new car, and this may be the car that I have to sacrifice. I don't want to think about it, but it is true. So ideally, I would have a spot in my garage for the Evo, an RSX, an S2000, like 5 Honda Civics from the 90s, and I don't know, the list goes on, an NSX. Right? I have a hard time thinking about getting rid of this car. If you have an RSX Type S, you probably know what I'm talking about. You don't want to get rid of it. There's so many people out there that get rid of them and just want to buy another one because they're such good cars. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't have a plan to get rid of this car. That timeline that I set for like a year has kind of come and gone as I've not finished everything that I've wanted to do. I have more mods to do on it. But anyways, we're gonna find somewhere to pull over and say see ya. All right, so it is time to wrap up a very long-winded video, and if you have made it to the end, just know that I appreciate you more than you know. So in a nutshell, the Acura RSX Type S has been amazing to own for the last year. Everything from working on it to just seeing it out in the garage has been a total dream, and I know that the teenager in me would be extremely happy to know that I have one today. So I have no plans to get rid of it. I'd like to keep every single Honda I ever buy from now on. I don't know if that will be possible, but just know that I have no plans to get rid of this car anytime soon, and I still have plenty of stuff left to do on it, but I did want to give you guys a proper 1 year update. So as always, if you guys enjoy the Acura RSX Type S vlog, please make sure to give me a big thumbs up, subscribe down below for more of that good Honda content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. This is ALLDAYANTHONY. Peace.